Hello and welcome to the very 12th episode of the second newest show on the StatCheck network. It is episode 12 of Take All Comers, What They Didn't Tell You on StatCheck, coming at you live at our definitely normal time of 4:37 p.m. on a Monday afternoon Pacific. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Bortel, joined by...
It's your boy Lucas, and
the illustrious...
Oh, it's Nicholson Johnson.
And as you can see, we've been doing this so regularly and with such high frequency that we have the intro down pat. But today we are here to bring you some spicy hot takes and second opinions based on the new everything that came out on 10.5, as people have been calling it. It is the latest and greatest additions to the Warhammer 40,000 game and match play community. And we're here to break it all down. We've got a whole bunch of reps under our belts collectively. We've got a bunch of different thoughts and a bunch of different factions. WTC is coming in hot and fast. As Anthony loves to remind us, we are only, 6 weeks away at this point? Five and a half? Something crazy. It's basically already happening. List lock is coming up soon. We're all going crazy, and we're trying to bring you a little slice of that kind of nonsense, and maybe a little bit of insight and information that we have gained from playing slightly more games than any sane person ever would in a 2-week period. But before we jump into any of that and start breaking down all the good stuff, I gotta check in with the boys. How we doing today, Lucas?
doing pretty good. Like you said, there's been a lot of 40K lately, and it's definitely kind of just all swimming around in my head and making me kind of go crazy. So I'm excited for a couple days off now before the next round of practice on a weekend. So doing all right overall. Just trying to survive the summer. It's getting to be hot in Portland, which is my least favorite season. So just trying to weather it as best I can. Weather the weather as best I can, as it were. So yeah, doing pretty well overall. And doing a lot of hobby, which is always fun. I always am in a great mood when I'm accomplishing hobby projects. So I'm just finished a unit of 20 of the new boys. They were the first of the new boys that I painted, and they look really cool. And now I'm finishing up a couple paint boys from the old Tide list and working on some new stuff as well. So I'm very excited. What about you, Mr. Nick?
I'm doing pretty good. I am on summer break for my job. So I have been enjoying basically having some time to relax these past 2 weeks. Went on 2 little vacations. And now I'm back. So doing a lot of reading of the changes. Haven't had the opportunity to play with any of the changes yet. Mostly because, was focusing on spending time with family and not playing on TTS. But yeah, looking forward to coming up this week. I know we got some friends coming into town this weekend, and we'll be playing quite a few games then. So got a few different lists floating around in my head that I'd like to put on the board, and excited to see how they play on these new missions. How about you, Tyler? How are you doing?
Hell yeah, man. I am doing pretty darn well. Last time we were in here was kind of a funeral procession for the Genius Colts Codex. Well, it finally arrived. I got mine. It's very pretty. It lives on my shelf. I never touch it. But I'm glad that arrived. But in addition to that, I've been playing a whole bunch of Tyranids and having a great deal of fun with that. But I am also kind of exhausted. We had a virtual practice weekend for USA this past weekend, and I played 6 games of TTS in 2 days, which I do not recommend. That is too much TTS. TTS is a great tool. Don't play it that much. If you're one of the people who makes that work, you're a sick fuck, and you should probably see a doctor about that, because that is not a pleasurable experience. But that's over. We have in-person practice happening finally again this week and this weekend with some of our locals. So I'm looking forward to that. Having a ton of fun with NIDS. Had a ton of fun in NIDS as well last week. Lucas and I played our second stat rep. That has been filmed. That has been edited. It is sitting on my computer right now in the process of being uploaded to YouTube. And then I got to make the thumbnail for it. So if you're listening to this and it's not live, it's probably up right now. By the time you finish listening to this, it'll be ready to go check it out. It's going to be Tyranids versus Orcs. It's super cool. It was a really fun game, and it showcases a lot of the fun parts of the new stuff. So yeah, having a good time, I think, overall. Yeah. Speaking of new stuff, though, let's go ahead and break down what exactly happened in the last 2 weeks, because we got a whole lot of things at once, and I think that because the changes are really scattered across various sources, it can be hard to know everything you have to look at. So if you're trying to make a reading list here and you want to catch up on all the changes in Warhammer in the last couple of weeks, what are all the things you have to read, like in terms of primary sources?
Oh God. I mean, is it easier? I'm thinking back to like learning about probability and like in stats classes in college and stuff, like isn't it easier to like find the opposite? Should we identify the things that didn't change? Like the one or two things that didn't change and then subtract from 100%? No, I mean like I think the biggest thing is the mission pack, honestly. We had points changes, but like those are pretty easy to digest. And we had rules changes as well in the Unitorum Field Manual, but those are all also relatively easy to digest. Usually, when we have these changes every 3 to 6 months, people can kind of like internalize them over the course of 1 or 2 weeks after the slate. But there was just so much stuff dropped. Now that I feel like those are kind of the easiest things to understand, and the more difficult stuff is just how different the primary and secondary scoring is in Pariah Nexus. You're gonna earn points a lot different. So I think that's probably the best place to start is with the Pariah Nexus mission pack and with some of the changes that happened there. So should we just hop like right into primary missions?
Yeah, let me actually give this quick rundown in case anyone wants to pause this and go do all their reading before actually getting to class.
Sure.
You're going to need to read the Pariah Nexus missions, the missions, both like the cards and the stuff that comes with it, and also the Tournament Companion, which is the digital thing that came out like the Leviathan pack last year, where they tell you what missions they'll actually play. There are also some very important rules changes in there, including a couple of FAQs and erratas to cards and changes to core rules, which is wild to me that they would put that there, but here we are. You'll also need to go reread the Designer's Commentary and main core rules FAQ because that changed a lot. You'll obviously need to read the new balance data slate and all the changes associated with that, and then check on your faction FAQs because a couple of them did change, some in more meaningful ways than others. And then you should probably also listen to the show or read a Goonhammer article because there were a bunch of shadow changes that don't get marked because they're just retractions. You need to magnifying glass both back and forth the old stuff and the new stuff to see what isn't there anymore. It's a mess. All that being said, Lucas is totally right. We should start on the missions because that is the most fundamental, universally applicable set of changes. Everything else also will be seen more likely in context of that. So let's start off with, you're talking about points, talking about primaries, talking about secondaries. Where do you want to get started?
I think primaries is the easiest place to start. There are a couple of holdovers from the prior packet. The ones that basically had no change, or maybe it's like Scorched Earth, for example, is the same mission, but now you can be on the objective rather than within 1 inch of the chip. That's functionally the same mission, right? So Scorched Earth is what's that?
Completes Scorched Earth also completes endgame now, right?
Sure, small changes that basically it's the same mission fundamentally. Take and hold, also the same mission fundamentally. Hold 1, hold 2, hold 3. The ritual is also basically the same. You now spawn objectives 12 inches away instead of 9 inches, and there might be some other caveats about where you can put objectives, but functionally it's the same mission. You score midfield objectives only, and you have to spawn them over the course of the game.
Yeah.
Servo Skulls is also the same. You won't really play that one very much in real tournaments. More of a for fun mission. Supply Drop also pretty much unchanged as far as I'm aware.
Supply Drop is actually unchanged. Servo Skulls is pretty radically changed. Because moving the objectives
requires like an action now.
Yeah, you move them on your turn with an action instead of they just go places every turn all the time. It's a radically more stable thing than it used to be. I don't think that we're going to see it in all the tournaments, especially because there's a lot of like built-up prior resistance to it conceptually, but it plays on the table a lot more reasonably now than it used to. So don't be entirely surprised if you see it at a local event or a GW event because they play all their missions.
Were there any others that are essentially the same?
Urge the Foe. It's basically the same, except it removes the kill more from round 1 that people hated. The like huge advantage to going second.
Yep.
So there actually isn't even any kill points round 1, right? There's no kill 1, kill more. No, never mind. Any battle round. Sorry. Kill more is just gone round 1. That's the big change.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet.
Other than that, unchanged.
Take and hold supply drop
Mhm.
exactly the same. Purge, ritual, scorched earth, very minor changes, but like honestly pretty nice quality of life changes to the mission. I guess I'd say the purge change was minor, but it was the one thing we've been requesting for months. So pretty happy to see that.
Yep.
Totally.
Yeah,
And then what about? Mhm.
Go ahead.
I was just going to prompt you to say what you're about to say, so go ahead and say it.
So for additions to the primary missions, we've had like a couple of new ones. I think the couple that we'll see most often are Linchpin, which is basically you get 3 points for every objective you hold. If you hold your home objective, the midfields are worth +2. So basically, if you have the very normal, like hold your home, hold your natural expansion, that's worth 3 and 5 respectively is 8. So every midfield's worth 5, basically. Pretty bog standard mission. It kind of feels like discount Vital Ground almost, but now we have a objective in the center of the board.
It feels like less punishing battleground.
Mm-hmm.
Or less polarizing, I guess I should say. Yeah.
Yep. You actually can get primary.
Yeah.
Instead of just like trickling in 2s.
The game
And
doesn't
then,
end 62 to 48 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like 62 to 30.
What are some other new ones? There's Terraform. Every objective on the board is worth 4. Terraform's very cool. It's one of my favorites. Terraform is every objective on the board is worth 4 victory points. And then you can do actions on midfield objectives. You have to survive your opponent's turn to complete the action and control the objective at the end of your opponent's turn. But if you do, that objective becomes terraformed. It cannot be then terraformed by your opponent, and you'll score 2 victory points in each of your command phases from then on out on that objective, regardless of who controls it. So it's like complete a tough action, continue to score 2 points for that objective because of that action over the course of the game. So early terraforms are worth more, so it kind of rewards aggression in that way. But also you can complete terraforms at the end of the game, so if you have a late game takeover, you can get like a burst of 4 or 6 points, which is pretty cool. I really like terraform.
You can also terraform your opponent's objective, I believe, because it says objectives outside your DZ.
Yep.
So if you get really
that's the mission that we
get a few more points.
Check out the stat rep for some of that. We did play Terraform. I agree, it's a super fun mission, and it incentivizes all sorts of different things, but really it just forces you to make really complicated decisions and consider things back and forth. From a list building perspective, I think it's going to encourage a little bit more early action. There's going to be a little bit less willingness to be fully passive because that mission is out there. Something that a lot of armies would do was sit back for a turn, like just straight give your opponent a 15, and then bring down the hammer in response to that, and then win in a lot in the later turns of the game. That is a much less effective strategy if that 15 is also plus 4 points every turn in perpetuity, regardless of objectives being held. So we'll see how that works out, but it's a ton of fun. I really like that mission. So yeah, we've got those two, and then what else have we got?
We got Burden of Trust, which I have not played.
Yeah.
I think it's 4 points for every midfield you hold, and then you can like assign Guardian units to those objectives, and if they stay on those objectives, then you get additional primary. I haven't played it, so I can't really comment firsthand. It seems kind of interesting. The only bummer is your home field isn't worth anything. So I think like mid-board primary control armies are going to really like that mission. People that just want to like stand on all the midfield objectives and control. They seems like they would really like that mission.
Yeah, it seems really good for any kind of mobile castle that can say my natural expand is my home field objective. I'm holding that and getting max points, and then pushing you off of a couple of others.
Yep. What else is there? Any other primaries?
Ben says you can guard your home.
Yeah.
Though you cannot hold it regularly.
Objective. Yeah.
Very cool.
That's cool. You get, 8 VP over the course of the game. Hopefully.
That is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there another one?
No, the other one was the.
I think that's all of them.
Yeah, or unexploded ordnance.
Unexploded ordnance. Yeah, for sure. Totally. Cool. So we've got new missions. That's great. I think the next most fundamental change is that we have new deployment zones.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
This is a pretty crazy change because it's not something we've seen since the start of the edition. We saw a very slight change to deployment zones between 9th and 10th with the introduction of sweeping engagement as a replacement for Vanguard Strike, which, because of how 9th missions work, those words don't mean anything. But switching from what was the mission for Data Scratch Salvage and Vital Ground to sweeping engagement, minor change. These changes a little bit more substantial. There's 3 of them. First off, that very mission, sweeping engagement, has been altered. It's no longer the simple middle to corner, draw the line. Instead, it's the deceptively simple, not as complicated as it looks, sort of stair-step approach, where the left half of your DZ is, I don't have the measurements off the top of my head, it's the left half like 16, and the right half, the left half is 14, and the right half is 10?
8 up.
8, even further back than that. Gotcha. So it's a very stair-step, staggered kind of on a Dawn of War situation. Similarly, there is a comparable deployment zone for Crucible of Battle style, which is called Tipping Point. Do you have the numbers on those as well, Nick?
Yeah. For this one, your DZ, the right side is going to be 20 inches up, and the left side is going to be 12 inches up.
Gotcha. So yeah, similar sort of vibes, though Crucible itself did stick around. And then while sweeping is just replaced with new sweeping. So we have Crucible, Tipping Point, sweeping. Hammer and Anvil is unchanged. And then we have Dawn of War, which was altered slightly in that it has gone from 10 inches up to 12 inches up, which is so stupid.
The nice thing about this, I know leaping ahead a little bit here, but when we kind of put this all together, we're going to talk about, like the missions pairing with like the recommended missions in the tournament pack. I believe Dawn of War is only recommended on 2 of the like 20 missions or something. And there's only 1 table layout for it. And one of those missions is the new Servo Skulls. So it really seems to be like they're like, if you want to play Dawn of War, like it's going to be goofier. Like they're not trying to force it on people. Which is good.
Yeah, they're acknowledging that Dawn of War is like probably not super well built for tournament games. It's a very
WTC has not used Dawn of War for a long time and will continue to not use it.
And if there's only one recommended layout for it, it makes it really hard for TOs to set up, for like a 3-mission day. So they'll be less incentivized to play it.
Yeah.
So. And
then lastly, Search and Destroy Table Quarters is entirely unchanged. It continues to exist as it did in the past.
Yep.
Have you played on these yet, Lucas? What do you think about them? Particularly Tipping Point and Sweeping.
I've played on Sweeping once. It was pretty interesting. It feels honestly very much like old Sweeping, just like a little bit different. You have a little less room on the left flank, a little more room on the right flank. Tipping Point's pretty cool. I like how easy it is to set up. I mean, that kind of doesn't really matter even. It's okay. I kind of need some more games to really get a feel for it, but it honestly just feels like discount Hammer and Anvil. Just kind of feels like the same deployment, honestly.
Yeah, just with better objective placement.
Yeah, the objective placement, yes. I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. This is something that we've been asking for since 8th edition, right? We have been hoping that something like Hammer and Anvil would include an asymmetric staggered objective placement, since like how we were trying that out on, was they call that the Ritual? What do they call the 6 objective Hammer and Anvil one in?
Scouring?
Not the Scouring, the other one. Where your home field was all the way back and then there were 2 and 2. Scouring was 5 objectives. You know what I'm talking about? It was mission 11.
Oh, retrieval mission.
Oh.
Retrieval, not ritual. Retrieval. There we go. Yeah.
Good old blue Imperial Knights mission.
Anyway, we wanted them to stagger it back then, so seeing that happen now with a slightly different take on Hammer and Anvil with Tipping Point is great. I also, as much like memeing as I've seen on GW for them saying that these are simpler and everyone being like, they're so much more complicated. I think they're way easier to check that your opponent did correctly and that you did correctly. So often when you try to slam down a Crucible deployment, and especially a sweeping engagement deployment, you kind of just mark the ends and then, you throw a tape measure or you eyeball it a little bit, and then suddenly your opponent moves 14 and they go for a 5-inch charge into your deployment zone, and you're like, wait a second. something went wrong here. That's not supposed to happen. Like, these are a little bit closer. I can show you the math on that, but they're not that much closer.
Yeah.
So knowing, okay, actually, the closest points, I can make that measurement. I can look at where things are supposed to be with straight lines at right angles, where every single bead or whatever dice, whatever you use to mark out your deployment zone, has a known measurement from both table edges. It's a great change. It's a really good change.
Someone with short arms losing the sweeping, across the entire table line is very nice.
I believe it. But if you do find them to be a pain in the tail to actually measure out, I've got great news for you. Through Red Dragon Games, we are now selling mats with deployment zones marked out, including the new ones. I believe they are in stock and available. If they're already sold out, they'll be back soon. They're super cool. They're very, very subtle, like little fine white lines that are not too bright. So they're not going to be distracting or anything. They're just there, and you don't even need to measure anything ever. You just set your stuff up. So that's what you call a seamless plug. And we'll move on to the next thing after the deployment changes. The next biggest thing after deployment and after primary is probably secondary. And my, oh my, this is probably the most radical shakeup of the whole situation. The first thing worth mentioning at the very beginning, kind of top down, the approach here is they want less dead draws in theory, and they want more agency on the part of the player. So as a result of this, we'll see that several cards suddenly get cycled out if they're not achievable, and by not achievable, I mean like literally not achievable, not they're hard. And if they're just hard, the 1 CP New Order stratagem has been extended to be used more than once. It used to be once per game you got to redraw, now it's every single turn you can redraw if you got the CP to burn, and sometimes you might. Assuming you're playing tactical, of course. But with that kind of as context, let's talk about some of the new secondaries, starting with what I think is probably the most unfortunate one. Lucas, talk about Call the Horde.
Yeah, so this is a new kill secondary that you can take alongside Assassinate and Bring It Down. That basically gives up 5 points every time you kill a unit of infantry that has 20 or more models, excluding leader models, or that has 25 or more wounds in its starting strength, excluding leader models as well. So, yeah, this is just like kind of a bummer. It's especially annoying that it coincides with a reduction in the number of points that you get for scoring Assassinate and Bring It Down. So it feels like those are a little bit less good as fixed options, and then you slam down a 5-point Cold Horde option to just like take a fat shit in Horde's mouths, which is kind of a bummer. So that is definitely one of the changes of all time. It is a fixed option alongside Assassinate and Bring It Down. And like I was alluding to, Bring It Down has been changed. Or Assassinate's the easier one, so I'll go over that real quick. It now gives up 4 points when you're playing fixed instead of 5. So it's a little bit harder to score if you're taking fixed. And then Bring It Down now has new thresholds. I haven't memorized exactly where they are, but I think it's...
Oh, they're easy. It's 15 and 25.
Okay. So if your vehicle is at 15 or fewer wounds, it's worth 2 points. If your vehicle is worth 25 or fewer wounds, or 25 to 15 points, it's worth 4 wounds. It's worth 4. And then if it's more than 25 wounds, it's worth 6. Yeah. So
no,
no,
it's 15 plus is 4, 20 plus is 6. Anything less than 15 is 2.
Oh, my bad. That was 25. That's on me.
Okay. So yeah,
You guys don't have your handy pariah mission Nexus deck, dude? Come on.
I probably honestly should go get mine.
It's harder to score Bring It Down is the moral of the story. So like taking the classic example of like taking Bring It Down against Tau, or it's also based not on models but on units. So for example, if you kill a unit of 2 piranhas that used to be worth 4 points on Bring It Down and now it's worth 2. If you kill a Chaos Knight Armiger, a War Dog, Armigers are the lame ones, you can get 2 points now instead of 3. If you kill a Devilfish, it's now worth 2 points instead of 3. So like every time you're scoring Bring It Down, it's like -1 or 2 points.
If you kill a unit of Crisis Suits, it's now 2 instead of 6.
Yeah.
Because 9 wounds. Yeah. If you unit of Paragon, similar kind of vibes, 2 points instead of 6, and no more +1 for doing it while doing tactical.
Does the attached character counts as a separate unit for killing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if you
Yeah,
kill
so
the
it can-
Volgons but not Vol, you'll get 2. If you kill them both, you'll get 4.
All right, just making sure.
Yep. So it just means that you're going to score a lot less points from those. But if your opponent happens to be playing a Horde, you can take Call the Horde and score very well. So also just fixed scoring is down across the board because they nerfed Teleport Homers down to 2 points for the middle, right where it always should have been. And then Cleanse as well is still worth 2 or 4. So that's still as iffy as it always was, right? Like if you take Cleanse, you really want to score 4 every single turn. And that means you're doing 10 actions just on Cleanse over the course of the game if you take it on fixed. So fixed scoring is definitely
That's probably a good point talking about Cleanse to bring up the action changes, because they're going to color how a lot of these secondaries work pretty heavily, especially something like Cleanse, which used to be for a very particular sort of army and is not for that particular sort of army anymore.
Yep.
Guns are no longer what I was calling action-enabling devices, which is to say, just because you're eligible to shoot doesn't mean you're eligible to action anymore. So you can't action in combat with a pistol, you can't advance an action with an assault gun, you can't action in combat just for being a monster vehicle. The only times that you can action after doing something other than remaining stationary or doing a normal move are when it's explicitly stated by something like a mission rule, or if you are a super heavy walker. I don't know if it's vehicle or walker. I think it's walker.
I think it's Titanic characters.
Titanic characters? That's what it is.
yeah.
Yes, it's specifically characters. It's supposed to be a night buff, right?
It's a night buff, yeah.
Yeah. You can do it if you're in combat, if you're a Titanic character, and also you can shoot and do it if you're a Titanic character. You also can't do it if you're OC0. I don't know if you mentioned that, but that's a
I didn't mention that. That's a huge change, yeah.
Yeah. All of these OC0 units we were seeing for screening, secondary scoring, action, secondary scoring, now will only be able to score like the stand somewhere. Secondaries.
Engage in behind, basically.
And area denial.
Yeah.
And area denial, yep.
Yeah. You can still, like, Scarabs obviously do, like, secure and extend if they're nearby a Cryptek. Anything that can grant them OC, right? They can still get the stand on stuff. If they gain OC, that means they could also do an action too, right?
Yep.
Because their OC would change. Yeah, so that's cool.
And what's also cool is that your OC becoming 0 does not stop the action from happening. Nothing stops actions from happening other than you leaving the table, being destroyed, or making any kind of move other than a pile in or consolidate. So if you or Scarabs run up and Xeris is giving them OC1 and they start cleansing, and then Xeris charges somebody, they can keep cleansing. But also, if you battle shock someone in the middle of their action, it doesn't stop the action from happening, which is a big thing for Tyranids, for example, to watch out for. So with that in mind, there are a bunch of new action secondaries as well. So the actions are really getting turned up here, and who's able to do them and when is really coming down. These are like very intentional forces here to drive us to do more actions and to build our lists ready to do more actions. We'll talk about whether or not that's an effective thing or not later, but that's the idea here at least. Nick, you want to break down a couple, maybe one of the new action secondaries, maybe sabotage or containment?
Oh, I was looking at like the fixed secondaries first. This one.
Oh, sure. We could, that is recover assets. The one that got
not be a fixed. Yeah. I've got the 3 new actions memorized. If you want me to just go through those, I think there are 5 actions in total now. So effectively deploy teleport homer stayed. It's just worth 1 less point in the middle.
What's it called now, by the way? They changed the name. People
Establish locus.
Establish locus. Okay.
And then cleanse is also basically the same. I think investigate signals was the only other action. That one's gone. Now there are 3 new actions. The first one is sabotage, which is an action you do while you're within a terrain feature and not within your deployment zone. You need to stay alive through your opponent's turn, and then you get 3 points if it's in no man's land, 6 points if you're in your opponent's DZ. So that is one of 2 new action secondaries that requires you to stay alive through a full battle round, so your opponent gets a chance to interact with you. The other one is recover assets, which you can do in your DZ, no man's land, and your opponent's DZ with up to 3 units in one of each of those places. If you complete the action, it completes over the course of a full battle round, so your opponent has their turn to try to stop you. If you complete it with 2 units, you get 3 points. If you complete it with 3 units, you get 6. So 2 units for 3, 3 units for 6. And then the other one, the easiest one, which is stupid, is containment, which finishes immediately. It's kind of like it's basically a strat reserve type thing. So you have to be within 9 inches of a board edge and not within your DZ. So like super strat reserve spacing. And you complete it immediately, and every board edge you scan while not in your deployment zone is worth 3 points. So you'll notice that all 3 of these new actions
To a maximum of 6.
Yes, by just leaving your deployment zone. Like you can go 1 inch outside your deployment zone and score all of these.
I believe recover assets, you have to be wholly within areas to do them.
Yeah, all of them require you
all of
be
them you have to be
wholly
wholly
outside of
within
your
an area.
DZ. Yeah.
Okay.
You cannot be within your deployment zone.
Yeah.
I think the sabotage in your opponent's DZ is within, not wholly within.
Yeah, that's
that was
the
but
distinction.
it still cannot be within your deployment zone, so it has to be wholly outside of your deployment zone, whatever it is.
Yep.
So, sorry, as you were saying, Lucas, you got to get just outside.
Yeah, so it's now these secondaries are worth fewer points other than containment, which is just stupid easy. They're worth fewer points, and your opponent has a chance to interact with you, but you can do them from much safer places. So, like, we call it a natural expansion because it's difficult to assail, right? Like, people generally take their natural expansion and then kind of like push toward the middle or toward their opponents. You can do all of these actions from behind the piece of terrain that's behind your natural expansion. So, like, if your opponent doesn't have 3-inch deep strike or insane threat ranges, these are just like free points. You can have one action doing unit chill there the whole game and just wait for any of these 3 cards to be drawn and just do them. No questions asked. So these 3 are interesting for sure. I like that they give your opponent a full turn to try to interact, because if the game gets scrappy or like your opponent doesn't plan correctly, then you can go off on crazy missions to try to interrupt. And because it takes a full it's kind of like interrupting Defend Stronghold, right? Like that was a huge deal over the course of Leviathan. Defend Stronghold was like a super easy 3 points, but if you ever blocked your opponent from getting it, it was like they wasted a card, because now that's like it's a dead card in their hand that they have to discard next turn for a CP. So if you can interrupt someone's sabotage or recover assets, that's a huge swing. So I like that part of it. I don't quite like how easy they are to score, though, because you can do them from complete and utter safety, which kind of removes the interaction part of it.
I also do not understand the thought process on why containment, which is by far the easiest of like point per thing you have to do, is the only one that's automatic and instant. Like, you score 6 points on containment, like, accidentally most turns.
Yep.
And also, it doesn't even complete at the end of the phase. It completes immediately. I never did the dive. Did anyone check if that means you can just do shit for the rest of the turn? Because it says immediately.
I don't believe so. I think actions say you can't move, charge.
You can't declare a charge or shoot. Yeah, for sure.
Until the end of the turn or whatever.
Well, I think you can leave the table, because I know that the leave the table breaks an action, but it's already done, so you can't break it. But I think that once you start doing the action, you say, I'm not going to shoot or charge for the rest of the turn, at least.
If a unit starts to perform an action till the end of the turn, they're not eligible to shoot or declare a charge, unless they're a character, and then they can shoot.
Totally. But like containment, if you have something that uppy downies like scouts, they can walk onto the board, contain, stay there, and then leave at the end of your opponent's next turn, which you couldn't do when doing the like sabotage, for example, because you score after everything else.
Yeah, scoring is always the last thing that happens.
So like, what are we doing? Why is it 6 points? Like it's like oh no, you have to be in the corner. That's where you were anyway. It's a very silly secondary. It's especially weird to see all of the old actions go down in points, which like homers turning into locusts going down in points, totally fair, totally valid. 2-4 as well. There's no is it 4 now? Is there still a 5 point in tactical, or is it just flat 4? There's no 5 point homers, but there's 6 point stand in the corner of no man's land for 2 seconds. I don't get it.
They're a bit weird.
So those are some of them. Those are action secondaries now. There's more of them. Be ready to do them and get in the practice. Just like with Investigate Signal, you will get in the habit of setting up for these things in advance. It's just a thing that's going to take some practice to do. But like Luke was saying, in particular, that natural expansion corner is the action hot zone. Get something over there quickly and just kind of watch the magic happen.
Yep.
Outside... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to move on to the next change for a second.
Absolutely. Outside of the action secondaries, what else we got that's new?
So the one that's on the forefront of my mind is they swapped. Well, they didn't necessarily say this was a swap, but in my mind, it's a pretty easy parallel between Tempting Target and Marked for Death, which, one of them is take an objective, one of them is take out a unit, but it's functionally the same thing. Your opponent gets to pick some place on the table or some unit, and you have to go try to interact with it. We all know how Tempting Target used to work. Marked for Death is now you get to pick 3 units from your opponent's army, and if those units are destroyed or leave the table in your turn, then you get 5 points. Or it might also count on your opponent's turn, kind of like how no prisoners used to be able to score it in your opponent's turn. I haven't looked at the issue of that. But functionally, it's your opponent picks 3 units, you go try to seek and destroy one of them, you get 5 points for it. I like this less than Tempting Target because other than in one like niche case, which is it really punishes uppy downy armies, which I think is awesome. Because right now it's just like uppy downy does whatever the hell it wants to. They just can do it. On turn 1, they teleport into your DZ. I thought the point of teleporting was you couldn't do it on turn 1. What? This is a fantastic secondary for that kind of scenario. You can just be like, you 3 uppy downy units, don't go anywhere. You're giving me 5 points, which is really cool. I like that as a punishment mechanic. But in just a like fundamentals of kill 3 units versus take a midfield objective, I like to take a midfield objective more. Because the Tempting Target felt very different at different points in the game, and it was kind of fun to try to find creative ways to, you got super rewarded for like flipping your opponent's objective basically. Whereas 80% of the time, I feel like Marked for Death is just your opponent picks the 3 screening units in your backfield, you don't kill them, you get a 0, you discard the card. Maybe that's just because the kind of armies I'm playing right now, or the armies I've seen being played right now, but it just feels like that's either a 0 or an automatic 5, and there's 0 in between. Whereas Tempting Target there's a lot more, nuance there. How do you guys feel about it?
Yeah, I feel like we felt this way about Tempting Target when it came out at first. And the nuance may come out of this with time. Getting to say, hey, much in the way of Tempting Target, you could say, hey, I want you to come stand over here because I see the units that can, and I want that unit out in the open. Similarly to say, hey, I want you to kill this unit because I know what it costs you to kill that unit, and I would like you to expend those resources right now, please. I think 5 points in terms of secondary is a lot harder to come by now than it used to be overall. So that trade-off may be a little bit less worthwhile than it was with Tempting, but similar to Tempting, hey, I'd like you to come take the objective that I moved my walking castle on top of is still going to be a pretty silly thing if it's just kill the units in the back of that. Also, unlike Tempting, I think it has a bit more intrigue in terms of how it plays out over the course of the game. I feel like Tempting on like turn 1 was just automatic if you're playing something vaguely fast, and on like turn 4 or 5 was often just backbreaking, as you're like, I have to get all the way across the field when we're fighting on this side over here, and you've got some tank over there that I couldn't bother to deal with that I'm out of resources for. Whereas Marked for Death now, early game, terrible, like come kill crap in my backfield. Late game, oh god, I've only got 5 units. Do I want to incentivize you to commit resources to killing this piece of crap because you only have so many activations? Or do I want to tell you to really put all your eggs in one basket and blow up my Incarn? Like, I'm intrigued. We'll see how it goes.
Cool.
But, yeah, overall, I didn't think Tempting Target was an especially bad secondary, but it's gone. And I think this is an interesting enough one. It's neutral at worst for me. Yeah. Nick, what else we got?
What else do we have? We talk about, I guess, what is not changed.
We can also talk about what's gone, because a couple very notable secondaries have left, and also the tweaks to discards and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I got them here, or at least for what's like
yeah, go for it.
Not changed. I mean, I guess it's a big list, right? Like, Storm is exactly the same, from what I can tell.
Yep.
You can just keep it on turn 1 now.
Form.
You can choose to keep it on turn 1.
Oh, you can draw it. Okay. Behind is the same, except you can redraw it if you score at turn 1.
And I believe that again is a can. So if you're playing an army that wants to do it anyway, go nuts. But you have the option now because that was annoying.
Yep. Defend is the same, even the same in that it's forcing you to shuffle back in if you draw at turn 1. The kill ones, right? Overwhelming and no prisoners are exactly the same.
Yep. Good objectives.
Secure no man's land and extend battle lines are also.
Don't know why those are the same, but they're still here.
If the goal was to reduce points, why the did extend battle lines not get changed?
And
deploying a home in your opponent's DZ? Way too easy. Stop that. Holding a midfield objective? Oh, man.
That's tough.
Buckaroos! What are we doing?
Extend maybe should have gotten the discard draw at turn 1 or something. I don't know. Or gone down to like.
Just gone down to 4. Easy.
Engage, also the same. Did it always have this discard thing where if you had less than 3 guys, you could discard and redraw?
I think so.
Or did it have like a weird thing that's like if you had 2 guys, you like were capped on the points you could score or something weird?
I think you had
used to be able to discard it if you had fewer than 3 units, but they also changed the exclusion zone. Now there's no like 6-inch cross in the middle of the table where you can't score. Now it's
more than 6 from the center.
Yeah, 6-inch radius circle in the center where that's the exclusion zone.
And then area denial, I noticed the middle isn't worth 3 anymore. It's just 2.
And they simplified it.
They
got rid of all the
radically changed.
They got rid of all the stupid wording. You have to be within 3, and your opponent can't be within 6 or 3 for the small number of points.
Yeah.
But like it's so well defined now. Fantastic change. Let's go.
Yeah, there isn't I can't read English.
There's also no more like trying to cram your unit in and like vaguely guess where the center is and use a 6-inch measuring stick and like, oh man, your unit happened to randomly be basically within 6, but you didn't tell me that. And think about it, it doesn't look like it's gone. It's way easier now. 3 inches.
Yeah, wholly within shouldn't exist unless it's like deployment zones.
Like deployment zones, terrain features, yeah. But
wholly within 6 of the center. Yeah, when things are getting like bumped around.
It was weird. But yeah, so good changes there. A+.
Yeah. So yeah, those are all the secondaries. Right.
Okay, so some notable exclusions then. What's missing? Everybody's favorite.
Goodbye, Capture Enemy Outpost, dude.
Capture Enemy Outpost is gone. They didn't give you an option to discard it. They just sent it off to the Shadow Realm.
It's sort of gone. It has a spiritual successor, which we'll get to.
Oh?
It does. Yeah, not in the secondary deck, but somewhere else in a secret place that'll help us later. Or a secret tool. There we go.
Still fine, dude.
Kill me.
Yeah, so a bunch of these. We didn't mention it, but we kind of mentioned it in passing. Cull the Horde, Bring It Down, and Assassinate. Well, Assassinate, I believe you still score the points if you killed all your opponent's characters, but Cull the Horde and Bring It Down, if your opponent does not have such a unit on the table at the moment, you discard it.
Yeah.
Which is an obvious change. It does open up a lot of really interesting list building counterplay, where if you have a really cheap 20-man unit or a really cheap vehicle or monster that can live in your backfield while the rest of your army doesn't have those things, you open up that being a dead draw to your opponent and can either tax them for a CP or maybe even deny them the ability to score points. Kind of cool.
Bring It Down monsters.
Yeah, always has.
Yeah. Continue.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. I would say overall the secondaries are kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Like we're still net positive here, but there's a new set of weirdnesses. It feels like they wrote the new secondaries and they changed the old secondaries at different meetings. Yeah. Maybe with different people, and they did not talk to each other. Because I like both of the directions. They just don't make sense in concert.
Yep.
Someone else also pointed out in the chat that you are allowed to score Storm turn 1 fixed now.
Oh yeah, that makes it a much more.
On it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's totally opens it up as a valid contender, especially with something like a terraform kind of mission, where your opponent really is going to be incentivized to get on objectives early and not just let you hold on to them. Yeah, interesting. That'll be something to think about. Cool. So we got primary, we got secondary, we got deployments. That's all the ways you score points, right? Primary and secondary? Right?
Gambits, dude. I love gambits.
That's all the ways to score points, right?
I'll be back in 15 minutes, boys.
Yeah, so secret missions are here. And they are... I think they were the thing that people... They were the thing that people were the most worried about on the front end. Just like when Gambits came around, everyone freaked the fuck out about them. The only difference is that there's an eensy-weensy, teeny-tiny chance that these are very much a real part of the game that will ruin people's play experiences in the not-too-distant future once everyone learns how to use them. They're interesting.
I'm telling you right now, I'm not throwing them away like I threw away my Gambit cards.
So, so there's 4 of them. And they work a little bit differently. It used to be with Gambits that you use them at the end of turn 3. You cannot score primary turn 4 and turn 5. You do the Gambit instead. Now, when you choose to use a secret mission, you hard cap your primary at 20, other than the primary from the secret mission. But those 20 can be scored over the course of any turns. So if you're going second, you can score 15 bottom 5 and 5 points bottom 4, and that can be your 20 primary, and then your secret mission, they're all worth 20 points if you succeed. There's no sliding scales. They're all or nothing. In addition, unlike Gambits, there's no longer a random selection of them. You have all 4 at your disposal to choose from, and you're going to select one of them, and you're going to put it in a sealed envelope, and you'll open it at the end of the game. Your opponent does not know what your secret mission is, because it is a secret mission. But often it'll be a little bit telegraphed what you're trying to do here, until you happen to be in a circumstance where your army can do a lot of them. And if your army can do a lot of them, you're probably fine on primary anyway. But what actually are they, Nick? Yeah, how do you do one?
Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I believe you are allowed to pick one at the end of battle round 3.
Yes.
But only if you are losing on total points, or is it losing on primary?
Primary. Losing on primary.
Okay. So if you're losing on primary, you select one of these 4, secretly put it face down, and then you reveal it at the end of the game. And unlike Gambits, where like you guys were supposed to both put them down and then reveal that neither of you chose Gambits, when you select a secret mission, like your opponent knows, one of them's not like a blank. Like there's no trickery at play here, other than like maybe the shell game of like which one of 4 things am I trying to accomplish. But kind of what Tyler said, it should be pretty obvious if like which 2 they're trying to do or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So
they exist to familiarize yourself with them. Yeah. So
they exist introduce a couple of new win cons. I think the easiest win con is Table of Bitch, which we've always talked about is a win con in and of itself. But in particular now, if at the end of the game your opponent has no objectives, no units that are alive, on the table, not battle shocked, and on an objective. Do battle shock units on objectives count, or do they not count? Is it any of those disqualify?
Or the 20 points. This one's called Shatter Cohesion. At the end of the battle, if they have no units, you get 20 points. Cool, you tabled them. Or every unit from your opponent's army that is on the battlefield meets 1 or more of the following conditions.
1 or more, gotcha.
And the conditions are battle shocked, below half strength, more than 3 away from all objective markers. So if every unit of theirs alive on the board meets 1 or more of those criteria, you also get 20 points instead of...
Yeah. I find it easier to conceptualize that in my brain as if none of their units hit all of the criteria of being alive above half strength on an objective while not being battle shocked, right? Yeah. You need 1 unit that hits all 4 of those things.
Yes.
That's like a substantial amount of things. I think that people will find this way easier to achieve than it sounds on paper. If you're getting anywhere close to tabling someone and you have scored no primary in 2 or 3 battle rounds, like, send it. Just send it. It seems
if your primary is like
strong.
10 at the end of round 3 and your like game plan is claw your way out, like pick this one,
It's great. That being said, maybe you're not so sure about your ability to kill everything, but you know that you're winning the attrition war. You're going to have a ton of resources left. You're never assailing your opponent's home field, but you're going to hold the table down pretty hard. You just kind of sat back for a minute, let them extend, and now you're going to come for the clapback. Well, then you should probably do I don't know what they're called.
You're talking about Unbroken Wall?
Yeah, Unbroken Wall.
Not in your DZ. Yeah.
Yeah. Hold 3 objectives at the end of the game that are not in your deployment zone. Could be your opponent's home field and 2 others. Could be the 3 midfields. Or if it's, again, or if it's a ritual, it could be 3 of them in a little pile. Like, could be 2 and 1 that you just spawned.
Yeah.
What?
Probably will not work on supply drop.
Yes, that is correct.
With, hidden supplies for some reason or whatever.
Yep.
Also, might not work on Scorched Earth. If shit
yeah, totally. If your opponent is burning out the objectives, and so are you. Interesting. So that one is, for a lot of armies, shockingly easy to accomplish. Like if I were still playing Unending Swarm, which went away for coal and other reasons, that would be just very easy.
Well, like, if you're going second, right, you already have like the advantage of seeing here's where the points are at the end of round 3, and then if you're going second, holding 3 objectives and outside your DZ at the end of the game is going to be much easier than if you're going first. So this is like a very good, like, I'm playing a tanky army and I went second and I like lost the early pressure, but like now I'm fighting back. So those like more slower durable armies have a way to get back into the game now.
Yeah, this hits anyone who's playing move block pressure without damage like really hard. There is no like jail as a concept is severely diminished by the existence of this ability here. If you're playing into Space Wolves, this is going to get taken a lot, especially going second. But maybe they've got 2 units that are going to hold you down the whole freaking time. But you've got some very fast battle line, and they don't bring battle line, which is a thing that a lot of people are going to do, if I had to suspect. Really, the best one for Unending Swarm is that one, and it's called what? Is Rapid Insertion the Warlord one, or is that the battle line one?
Command Insertion
that is
is
neither
the
of them.
one.
The battle line one is War of Attrition.
That makes no sense. But yeah, how does that one work?
Scored when 1 or more battle line units from your army are within your opponent's DZ, and one of the following conditions applies. There are no battle line units from your opponent's army on the battlefield, or there are every battle line unit from your opponent's army that is on the battlefield is within their DZ. Interesting. So this is the get your battle line unit to their DZ and keep theirs there or hunt them down. It's going to be really good for stuff with like fast battle line into armies without a lot of battle line. So like Hypercrypt, anything with Uppy Downy, Thousand Suns, right? They have a bazillion battle line units that can double move, or they have the crystal unit that can teleport. So
and then double move.
There's going to be some armies that's shockingly easy to accomplish with. So if you look at your army and you don't have a lot of battle line, and your opponent has some, keep an eye out.
Yeah, this is the one that I think is going to have the most long-term list-altering effects, where you need to be able to avoid this, either because you know that you have battle line of your own that you can keep alive or in midboard, or because you know that you can hunt down your opponents if they're going to be well-positioned to deal with this. But in some circumstances, like Hypercrypt, you might just give this up every game. Period. Like,
if they can teleport in, kill your like remaining battle line unit, and now be in your DZ, cool.
Yeah,
points, baby.
Especially cool. And then lastly, what I would say the biggest dick one of all is definitely Command Insertion. Why don't you read that one off?
This one, your warlord is within range of 1 or more objective markers in your opponent's DZ that you control. So this is the Steve Classic, or the Magnus goes and T-poses on your home field after killing your army. The thing, though, is if like someone has a very aggressive warlord like Magnus, right? And it's end of round 3 and the Thousands player is losing on primary, you could like switch your target priority. Like if you get to the point where you're like, okay, I think that's the secret mission you picked, and then you kill Magnus for the end of the game, cool. That's it, if that was their Hail Mary plan.
Yeah.
I guess like for armies, it's not going to be like, it's interesting because it's like you have to be losing on primary. So for a lot of armies that this is going to be really strong at, right? Like where they're hurling their warlord at you, like Enkron, right? Like they're probably beating you on primary. So this is like a comeback mechanic for armies that have potentially fast warlords, or if the game is really scrappy. and you end up like winning at the end. The Warlord one is so messed
Literally
up.
mentioned fast warlords as Ashley mentions Angron. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
fast warlords that come back. Oh, good. My target priority was kill Angron. Oh, he came back.
yeah.
Oh,
But like,
okay.
what armies are like? There aren't a lot of armies that are in a position where they have more primary than world leaders, like right end around 3.
But like
Obviously,
as a
there's some
world leaders
scrap.
player, you get to play that game, right? Like let's say you're going second as world leaders and you see that your opponent has rung up a certain amount of primary, you can just walk off the objectives.
Good. Yeah.
Like that's an option if you're worried about getting tabled down.
I don't know if that's
I think you.
I think there will be some gaming of like trying to prevent people from going for their secret mission automatically. That is fair.
Yeah. There might be some where the score is really close. You let them get like 2 points ahead of you. You don't pick a secret mission, and then you slam them to the locker or something like that, which could be interesting. Or they see what's
I think
happening,
especially with some of the new smaller points going around. Banners counts towards secondary, not toward primary.
Correct
But
that.
like on the defend mission, for example, you might not nominate your defense on turn 2 or 3 or whatever, and then suddenly your opponent and you have been going on at parity, you're only down 2, and now you unlock this suddenly. Or like you let your opponent get a terraform off, and suddenly they uptick by 2, and funny. So we'll see how these play out long term, but in the short term, I know Lucas, you've had the most personal experience with them. How'd they feel?
I mean, kind of shitty, but that's probably because all the armies I play like denying primary and being aggressive. Like fundamentally, I'm used to throwing my army away to deny points, and it feels bad when my opponent has like not a guaranteed, because like only having played against it a small handful of times, I don't feel like anything's a guarantee at this point. I can't realistically say that in good faith. But it did feel like a very, very easy glut of points for them, just for like to basically gunning down my army.
Yeah,
which feels
certainly
bad.
more. Oh, sorry.
I mean, I loved that. I loved the dance playing very aggressively of like how long can I hold my opponent back before they table me and can catch up. And I feel like a lot of those games are very close, right? Where like the aggro army scores 80% of the points in the first 3 turns, and then the defensive army scores 100% of the points in the last 2 turns, and like who comes out 5 points ahead. That's a fun little race. Now the aggro army's like, I have 3 units left, and my opponent has 15, and they can accomplish like any of the secret missions pretty damn easily. Like, what are you supposed to do when you're basically tabled and your opponent's like, haha, unbroken wall. I have units left. 20 points. Also 15 on primary. Guess I got 35 for hiding like a bitch in my deployment zone. I thought the point of primary was supposed to punish people for hiding in their deployment zone. Like, what? It's dumb. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I was going to say from a singles perspective, it seems like you might still, as the Horde player, like just have to pay more attention on like how you string out your like waves of pressure, right? So you have some stuff maybe turn 4 to make it a little harder for them to accomplish the secret mission and still win the game. But from a team's perspective, right, where you have someone in the locker, like you have someone down, like, all right, differential's 30, differential's 35, and then all of a sudden it goes differential like 10 or 15 out of nowhere. That sucks. It's like, okay, this is a matchup where like I know I'm gonna lose, but because I like can throw the secret mission in, now all of a sudden this, I don't know, 14-6 for the orc player becomes like a 12-8, right? Like that's where I think we're gonna see a lot of the impact, at least this summer.
I mean, it's a 20-point swing, dude. Every single time that happens,
yeah, it's crazy.
It goes from like a 15, you know, I jailed my opponent, I get 15 points, to they got a free 35 in the last turn, and now it's an 11 or a 10.
Yeah. So
I personally don't like it, but I am trying to remain calm about it and think about play arounds instead of just getting upset about it right away. So yeah, I mean, I like it more than Gambits for sure. It's cooler than a mechanic that literally doesn't exist. Whether or not they're too good or too annoying or whatever is yet to be determined.
I particularly like that they're a lot less chance-based than the Gambits were. The gambits being, oh, if you jump through 3 hoops, you can roll some dice, and then you get mad at the dice, not your opponent, for jumping through the very complicated hoops. Now it's like, damn, you jump through the hoops, you get your thing. We can argue about whether the hoops are at the correct height or whatnot, but conceptually it's a lot less stupid than, oh, my opponent rolled an 11, I guess I lose the game now.
Yep.
So I appreciate that as a change. Again, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We'll see how they develop over time.
Gents, we are an hour in. Should we move on to some questions?
Let's do it. And
Yeah,
sorry, one last thing on
totally.
secret missions, just to really clarify. The 20 points you're locked to, is that 20 points off the primary mission? Or no, that's right. Does it cap you on 20 points off the mission or 40 points total on primary?
It's 20 points of regular primary and then 20 additional points of primary for the secret mission.
So you can't
Right.
still get like more than 20 from just playing the game.
No, you get at it hard caps your total score at 90 instead of 100 because you cannot score 10 of those 10 primary points, and the other 20 of the 40 have to come from the secret mission itself.
Yeah, you either accomplish your secret mission and get between 20 and 40, or you
Yeah.
don't and you get between 0 and 20.
Yep.
On
Okay.
primary.
And question, are you allowed to play it if you're above 20 on primary? Even if you're behind, or no? Can you only play
If if you're at 25 and your opponent's at 30, I think you can play it. You just get brought down to
you
20.
just automatically lose 5 points?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's right.
I was trying to just figure out some questions. Like, cool. Let's move on to some questions.
Yep.
Sweet. Got a whole bunch going on here. If you're interested, I'm going to do some plugs here as well. If you're interested in asking us questions that you want to see covered on air, you can super chat them in the YouTube, which we'll always cover. Big shout out to our Benjamin McYerrick, the greatest garden player in all of Scotland. Long-time listener, first-time watcher. Thank you for the $5 super chat. We appreciate you, Ben. Love you lots. But in addition to that, you can join us in Discord to keep the conversation going. That's a Patreon-only Discord, link in the description. I believe it is $5 a month to be involved, and we'll put up a show questions thread in the Take All Questions channel a couple days before we do each one of these, so you can always ask your questions there. And also, obviously, we're all in there, as for the rest of the StatCheck guys, as the rest of the community, so you can get whatever you need more in-depth up there as well. If you need more in-depth than that, like if talking to people isn't enough, you want to put some dollars to donuts and get some professional coaching, then we do offer that here at StatCheck. We offer that via Ines, via Typhus, via Curie, via Nicholas Olson Johnson down over there, and via myself as well now. I'm on there. It's very exciting. So if you want to get coaching from any of us, hit us up via that website. Again, link should be in the description, statcheck.com/coaching. In order to get involved, we got a lot of different packages to meet whatever your needs might be. If you just want a little bit of help one-off, that's available. If you want a recurrent thing, that's also available, so check it out. While you're checking that out, we told you about the mats at Red Dragon earlier, but in addition, check out the rest of their miniatures. They got new and used stuff at great prices not the northeastern United States and not northeastern Canada either, because that would be the middle of nowhere. In southeastern Canada, you can check out some of their stuff. They got good shipping prices to the continental United States as well. It's not too bad. Check out Red Dragon. They're great. In addition to that, if you want some StatCheck specific gear, you can get some of that over on Etsy from Saltire Games. We're also sponsored by another Etsy shop that I cannot remember the name of, but it's in the description. They make great widgets. Love their stuff. And who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting an important one. I'm almost the point that I can just start looking at the thing, but not quite there yet. It is. Of course, WTC style train from Whalen Yutani. Save 5% with the code StatCheck5, linked in the description. And GWS Open Style Terrain, check out J15 Games. In addition into those, definitely want to mention Frontline Gaming right now is selling WTC Terrain, finally. We've said it on this show and other shows in the past. Frontline Gaming runs tournaments that we have mixed opinions on, but they make physical products that we have fantastic opinions on. Their table, fantastic. Their mats, fantastic. Their terrain, like the physical piece itself, whether or not it fits into your terrain system, that's whatever. The physical product is incredible, and if your terrain system is WTC, they make that now. It is pre-color printed, painted, whatever you want to call it. So all you got to do is pop it out of the frames and stick it together. It's fantastic, and they're supporting Team USA with that. A portion of those proceeds go directly toward helping us in Belgium. Would love it if you would check that stuff out. Okay, I think that's all the plugs for the time being. Check out the rest of the shows in the network. They're all awesome. Let's jump into some listener questions now. Starting off, as we inevitably had to, with our boy Beginner Sam asking, are GSC secretly good? Probably not. There are definitely some builds in there that are worth exploring and that are interesting. But I don't think I'm going to be diving that deep into it until we get some love in September. There's just too much more exciting stuff going on in NIDS or Crons or elsewhere for me at the moment. But I'm excited to see what other people have to say. I did write a Brood Brothers GSC list that everyone thought was stupid and bad, so I threw it away. But yeah, that's something there. All right, question that is quite something here from Isaac T. I'm definitely not the right person to answer this. So y'all let me know what you think. Do Thousand Sons or Blood Angels have a better sisters matchup, and which have better singles run in general on GW terrain? Lucas, I know you know Blood Angels fairly well, and Nick, I know you've played Thousand Sons a bunch. I don't know how much either of y'all played New Sisters. I haven't gotten to play into them yet. We're going to play into a bunch this weekend, though. Very exciting. What do you think about this?
So what's difficult with Sisters is that there's a lot of builds that are very viable in singles. I think the Penitent Detachment came out really hot, and then took some pretty serious point hits, and people looking at a little bit less, but that's still relevant. The Advanced in Shooting Detachment is still very relevant. Both Index Detachment and Army of Faith are unique and good in their own ways. So there's like 3 or 4 very good Sisters builds in the 4 detachments, which kind of makes it hard to quantify. I think that Thousand Sons would probably do super well. I don't know either of those armies great, but I feel like the kind of damage that Thousand Sons are bringing to bear, from both from far away and up close, kind of means that, you know, some of the miracle lights that Sisters are relying on, you know, this doesn't really matter against dev wounds. The 5-man squads are just kind of like getting obliterated on Overwatch when they come down to move block. There's all sorts of like kind of rough dynamics that I think could be pretty problematic. And then Sisters might not have a great way to answer like a big, now that Mutilith Vortex beats got buffed, those guys just stomping up the field, bouncing stuff off the invuln and being tough OC on objectives could be rough for Sisters as well, but I'm happy to be wrong. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I think, like, again, there's a ton of different Sisters builds, and there was that initial hype. And since then, they've changed a lot because they went up like 400 or 500 points or something crazy. So I haven't had the opportunity to play into them yet. On paper, though, it seems like the Thousand Sons and Sisters matchup is probably like this very careful positioning, you know, movement. But if like the T-Sun, like whoever gets like a big swing in there, like deletes the other person. The thing about the Sisters, though, is like a lot of their damage comes from like melee, correct me if I'm wrong. Like I know they have the tanks, and I know they have like the advance and shoot, and they have the retributors, but like retributors are very like low volume, and T-Suns, like every rubric has an invuln, right? Like at the end of the day, they're just Marines, so they're not that difficult to kill. But a big thing with T-Suns is the change to the free strat, right? The 6 Cabal point, use a strat for 1 less power, or 1 less CP now. It makes the ignore line of sight stratagem a lot stronger, because now you can use it for 1 CP instead of 2. And okay, cool. Ignore line of sight, you capped on 4s. What if I shot you with 6 psychic flamers from behind a wall? Very cool. Flamer is very good into Sisters, right? Even the non-super flamer from the Infernal Master, 1 damage. Well, Sisters are all 1 wound. And like what Lucas said, dev wounds, because you're always sitting in psychic dev wounds. Okay, roll like a few 6s there, flip a 6, you've already neutered like most of a Sister squad. So yeah, I do think though, like obviously T-Suns are probably a more difficult army to play than Blood Angels. I know with Blood Angels there's like a lot of positioning, and there's that one stratagem, right, like Suffering and Sacrifice, that could like definitely ruin a Blood Angels thing. But the thing that Blood Angels have is they've got Fight on Death, right? And if like a lot of Sisters plan to beat, you know, is like punching people to death, then like the Blood Angels will trade very effectively there. And the thing to, yeah, I do think it's a little bit like more favored for T-Suns because they have better ranged output, which Sisters aren't going to like, because Sisters also have Fight on Death access, I believe. But I think talking about which has a better singles run in general on GW terrain, I think Blood Angels is honestly going to be safer. The thing is looking at a lot of these new maps, we didn't really talk about the mission pack. We'll probably do a deep dive into that in like a later episode. But like the mission pack, the recommended terrain layouts, there's tons of staging points. And Blood Angels are a like fast melee army, right? It's all like 12-inch move infantry, so they're going to be able to stage super effectively. Like, not talking about assisters here. If you were to pick Blood Angels against like any army you could like pair into it, like GW Tacoma, for example, I think Blood Angels are going to take you further. T-Suns are going to get hurt a lot more by like, oh, I hit this matchup on this terrain. Oops, I lose. You know, that sort of thing. What else is also out there? Tau is still really good. T-Suns do not like fast shooting. So Blood Angels can definitely, like, if the Tau guy mispositions, they can launch, you know, something into the heart of their army and delete them. You know, T-Suns are trying to get into a gun war with something, and their guns are all like 12 and 18-inch range.
There's also something to be said that I agree with you. Blood Angels are better. Also because, in addition to the things you mentioned, they're much simpler. Like, Blood Angels are not a brain dead army. Like, they take a lot of skill to play. It's fundamentally a bunch of like fairly squishy Marines, but it's got like the one game plan, like stage melee and hit opponent hard. So like there's a lot of nuance with the minutia of what you do, but the macro game plan is always the same. I feel like every T-Suns player I watch is like having a stroke every single game trying to figure out how to win it.
It's really easy to trip over yourself. And if you want to like learn how to beat a matchup, you probably need to practice like 2 or 3 times. But once you do that, you're gonna like do really well. But yeah, BA you could play against something you're not as like familiar with and just execute your game plan. And if they can't stop it, like you'll beat them.
Yep.
Yeah. What I will say is that when we're talking about GW terrain, there's a difference between GW terrain and GW events, because GW in this designer's commentary has doubled down on charge blocking as a thing that you can do if you're going to an event that utilizes that ruling, which is nonsense. But if you happen to be at one of those events, such as a GW event, consider that when choosing Blood Angels. You're probably fast enough to run around walls and stuff, but it's going to hurt you a lot more than it's going to hurt you while playing Thousand Suns if you're just looking through walls as opposed to not being able to even charge through them. So,
yeah.
I mean, isn't that just a
mileage
rule
may vary.
yeah?
The designer's commentary says, "Hey, there's like an FAQ that's like, hey, is charge blocking a thing?" And they're like, "That certainly seems like a thing. If you want to house rule it that it's not, though, more power to you." Come on, guys. So it's not a thing at WTC. I don't believe it's going to be a thing in the Pacific Northwest anytime soon. It's certainly not going to be a thing at Matt Wood's events. Sorry, not just Matt Wood, Matt Wood Perry and
PPM.
PPM. PPM events.
Patrick, Perry, and Matt. So we'll see. But just check with your TO before deciding if you want to play Blood Angels or not, because that's going to hurt. All right, I'll answer this very quickly. John Johnson asks, for Tyler, a question you can certainly answer that fear of violating your WTC NDAs. Is Invasion still the best home for an unhinged Hierophant Biotitan, or is Crusher changed enough that it's already a meme list like its buffs over a 5 at Feeling of Pain and sustained hits? 5 at Feeling of Pain is probably just the strongest rule you can hand that thing. That's excellent. It's also like really good at secret missions because it could just like hold on to a squad of gargoyles for a while. I think it's a gargoyles or Hormogancios. Cramps a battle line in it. It's very funny. It doesn't have Synapse, so I wouldn't put it in Nexus. Giving it bonus OC from Crusher just like doesn't really matter. But it is funny in Crusher, right? Because it hurts itself. It gets to below starting strength like immediately, and for the rest of the game, it's pretty good. But like, I don't know. It's funny, you know. 2d6 plus 12 shots hitting on 2s suddenly double blast at 10-3-3. Definitely gonna hurt somebody. Maybe play Crusher. It's a funny meme. I don't know if the Hierophant got the night treatment where it can just flatly walk through walls now. I'm not going to look into it. You're a legend for playing that thing. Yeah. Actual question from John Johnston. What's the high-level player like y'all's methodology when a major rule shakeup comes out? What's your process for testing your old lists and pivot points to a new idea? Lucas? Question.
Yeah.
Dang it. I was hoping you were not going to say me first.
Okay, I can go first. I can tell you what not to do.
Tyler?
Don't do what... Yeah, don't... Thanks, Nick. Don't do what I did. When everything started coming out, I was very hesitant to play games with half-baked rules and like bad screenshots and whatnot. I wanted to have everything in front of me so I could process it all. And as a result, I just feel like a week behind right now, because those half-baked games, while they're not perfect information, and we may have come to some false conclusions from them, it's pretty easy to fix that. Whereas getting everything dumped on you at once is a lot. Bigger deal than that, though, frankly. Don't also get all of your armies taken away from you in the process. Rest in peace, Unending Swarm. Rest in peace, Genestealer Cult. And then, like, the particular Hypercrypt that I was playing doesn't really work either anymore. Like,
Sad.
kind of a bummer in terms of time. We didn't even talk about pivots.
Sounds
or
like you're
anything.
using some OP shit, dude. Come on.
I mean, Unending Swarm, it won Dallas, so evidently it was just too damn strong. Whatever the case. So trying to figure out new armies. I'm playing Vanguard Nids. You can check out the stat rep to see that right now, which has been a lot of fun. While trying to learn new missions and learn new rules is just like a lot, so don't do that. I would recommend changing things one at a time. If your list fundamentally didn't change, don't change it. I know there's something new and flashy. Don't bother. Play what you know and see how things change. Don't play a new mission with a new deployment zone off the hop. Start with an old mission on an old deployment zone with new rules and changes and secondaries, and then switch up the deployment and the mission later. See how things go one at a time. You want to isolate test cases so you can figure out how changes impact things, instead of, well, this is a new army and a new mission with new rules, and I'm doing a secret agenda, and I'm playing a new deployment zone, and I'm playing against a person I never met before in a terrain format that I just invented. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. You're going to have no idea how to isolate what actually matters there. Play more games, changing things slowly. If you don't have time for that, kind of a bummer, check out our stat reps and other such things in order to get as much information as you can on the front end, because it really is 10.5. This game feels entirely different than it did a month ago, and you need to shallow end yourself into that. If you just kind of put it off and say, you're going to try to go to an RTT and you're going to get mollywomped because you are way behind the times. So stay active, stay involved, watch content if you can't play games changing a little at a time if you can. Anything you guys have to add to that?
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, I guess like one small thing. What you were saying about lists, like more specifically, like what I'll do is like when there's a major rule shakeup, I like look at like the lists I had success with in the previous like rules format, and if not a lot has changed, or maybe like 400 or 500 points has changed, make those changes and then start testing it, and see if it still works. If you're still excited about it, of course, right? Like if you're like, cool, maybe they like nuked it and I didn't like it anyways, like go find something new. But like, for example, like one of the big things is like T-Suns, right? Like it's been just like, all right, take a look at the T-Suns like lists and, points changes, which honestly not very meaningful or large at all. But just kind of like adjusting some stuff there and then going and give it a try. Yeah.
Totally. Cool. We're going to keep it rolling because we're on a bit of a time budget here and there's a whole bunch more to talk about. 2 questions coming in from Sam Lemon over here. First off, how has this year's WTC campaign experience felt in comparison to last year? Have there been any beneficial changes you've noticed in the process?
Ooh, I mean, the thing that's at the forefront of my mind right now is the virtual practice weekend that we just had as members of Team America. Last year we did some in-person practice weekends where we all got together at one of our houses and, played a bunch of games and hung out. This year we are doing that, but also virtual practice weekends over TTS. So that's like one of the bigger changes to our process. And, it has some upsides and downsides, but it's certainly a lot of valuable data, right? Like if there's like 4 games going on and there's 3 or 4 games a day, then that's like, 12 to 16 games worth of data. And then 2 days of that, it's like 20 plus games worth of data. Plus, we all get to sit down in one place and, hop in calls and discuss strategy and that kind of thing. So making sure there's a guaranteed time where we all get together to do that was definitely one big part of the process. On my own personal journey as a starter, I've kind of had 2 entirely different paths. Last year, I had a rocky journey of like trying to play lots of different factions, none of which I had any experience with, which was really tough. But this year I've had a lot of success both with Chaos Knights and Orcs, and like those there's some other things we're considering for me as well, but like those are the 2 things that I'm like most considering for me going to WTC. But there's lots of things still on the table, so who knows.
Yeah, this time last year, Lucas was having a panic attack. It was
Yeah, dude,
really funny.
Done
Imperial Knights,
horrible
dude.
with IK and then done horrible with Necrons. I'm like, what am I doing? I've never played these armies.
And then we were like, "Hey, Lucas, you want to play Custodes?" I had to keep him from driving the car off the bridge.
God, dude. You'll never catch me playing that terrible army.
Oh, man, no. You have to take it from John's cold dead hands.
Exactly.
We all know that John Lennon
He's
plays
coming for you,
Custodes every
Europeans. We'll
WTC.
see you in a month.
He's doing it.
Shield host, baby.
For sure. From a non-starting roles perspective, this has been so there's some difference this year in that the roster has been like kind of wink wink nudge nudge, pretty clear what's going on there for the whole year. So there's been a lot less of the fight and the hunt, and a lot more of the, okay, this is my role, how do I do it best? And with NIDS getting a ton of changes in the data slate, this has been a really fun role for me to take on, right? We have a bunch of Tyranid players on the team. Notably Jonathan Lennon. That's his name isn't Jonathan, by the way. Don't call him that. He gets mad. Sean Naden, who played Eldar last year. Eric Forsman, who played GSC last year, also plays Bugs. I play Bugs. Cameron Pinheiro plays Bugs. Our coach Vyasar Ganessen also plays Bugs. Like, there's a lot of Bug players to go around, but there's also a lot of interesting Bug stuff going on. So kind of shuffling out all the different assignments of, hey, everyone go play something different and come back, and then we'll kind of meld some ideas together has been a ton of fun. It's not every day you get to work with a whole bunch of people with faction expertise like that. So it's been a really cool time. Yeah, it's been great. Having an awesome time. Nick, I know you've been taking a bit of a step back the last couple weeks as you've been on vacation, but you have any thoughts on this?
No. I mean, I think you guys said it best. It feels just like more well put together. Feels like there's a solid plan that we've had for weeks, and like we're executing on it. Yeah.
Sweet.
You know, like I said.
Curie asks, how dare you? Fuck you, Curie. Joel is happy to get here and says, let's go, Lucas and Nick. I assume y'all know this guy?
That's my
yeah,
boy.
dude. It's our boy from Team
Awesome.
Southeast Asia, dude.
Oh, sweet.
That's the
That's
Rampager
awesome.
enthusiast.
Yeah, well, now he's
Hell
going to
yeah.
get put back on T-Sons soon because they didn't change.
Oh, let's go, dude.
We'll
Let's
see.
go, dude.
Sweet. We got a question in here from Goran Redrum. Asks, what Astra, I assume by Astra he means Astra Militarum, list would you recommend to start playing the army competitively?
I mean, none of us are experts, but the holes seem really good right now. There's a lot of really good
Leman
Russ
Russ spam?
variants. The
Yeah.
Dorn is just a great linebacker. It's very tough.
It hits real hard. Totally.
Yep.
Yeah, check them out.
I would lean away from
here-
artillery.
Mhm. Yeah. The indirect stuff, it's not what's up anymore. You're playing a different army now. I don't know how much Bulgren got price hiked, but they seem like a really good unit to have at a time like this. Yeah, I would probably at least think about taking Canis, because he's just brutally efficient. And anytime you're playing an Imperial army that's not a Space Marine variant, he just seems like something that slots in very nicely. So check some question about that. We've got a question here from John Johnson for Mr. Olson Johnson in particular about the brand new Votan unit. Do the inclusion of Jaegers being priced to move reinvigorate Votan enough to go back to them? A screening 80-point infiltrator in an army that wants things to die to generate tokens and needs to use Scout to Alpha Strike? Seems great.
Yeah, Jaegers are fantastic. We thought they were going to be like 110 for some reason, but we thought they were going to be that, and like we were like, this doesn't seem that great at 110. 80 points, that unit is, I think, incredibly fair for the cost, which, I mean, is kind of the like sticker you could slap on the entire Votan index. Incredibly fair for the cost, outside of, you know, their brief stint in September where Sagittars were a little too cheap. Yeah, I think that Jaegers just give Votan another great tool in an army that has a lot of different tools in the box. And it does a great thing against like pressure armies, right? Like world leaders that are notably bad for you. And you can just put an infiltrating screen out and be like, hey, what's up? You don't get to charge me turn one. Or like, you know, you don't get to like charge me in my DZ turn one because I have this line of dudes move blocking you. Yeah, the unit doesn't hit particularly hard. Like I'm not going to like probably, you know, throw 30 Jaegers at someone and be like, I'm going to table you right now. I'm not probably doing anything like that. But yeah, I think they're a great unit. If you've noticed here, my name says GW, please release Jaegers. Because I am begging them to release the, standalone kit because I don't want to play like $100 on eBay for 10 of them right now. Yeah, I don't know if it's like enough to immediately be like Votan are top S+ tier, go play them, they table everyone army. I think it's just Votan never stopped being good, but they haven't gotten insane. They're just still a good army that has armies out there that can beat them. Yeah, they're great. Get 10 of them, throw them on your list.
Do it.
There you go.
Next question coming in from Steven is, what are y'all taking to Tacoma Open so I can counterpick you? I don't know that any of us are going to Tacoma.
Yeah.
No, I have some people that are desperately trying to convince me, so we'll see.
Yeah,
I really
I
wanted
would
to go,
love
but it's just
to.
on the cards.
Yeah, the finances of the situation are just a little bit tight right now with going to Europe again this year in particular. Like, it's just hard. It's a ton of fun. I love Tacoma. It's one of my favorite events that I've been to in the past. Yeah, so currently nothing. If I were going to Tacoma, I'd probably play Vanguard Nids because they're fun.
This is
You
a
don't like
coded
Canon Knights,
message
dude?
that I'm running 6 Dread Knights and Canis. This is what I'll be playing at WTC this year. Alert.
Imagine if we showed up with the entire squad with double Tau plane, dude. Come on. Just 12 mantas or whatever they are, tiger sharks.
Tiger Sharks. Well,
There we go, the
WTC
Mantis
has
Sharks.
banned those. Hopefully GW does as well. So
Well,
we'll see how
bring
that
12
goes.
of them and make them ban them. Let's go, dude.
I'm going to Alpha
Fair enough.
Blue. 2 AX10s. I took the bad Tiger Shark. Fuck you guys.
I mean, it's pretty sick. All right, real question. Same Asker. What do you think is the biggest thing to consider in this new Unkempt by Wraith balance and smeta? Who is the boogeyman
Angels.
right now? Probably Blood Angels, if not, maybe Bringers of Flame Sisters.
Also, you should probably read the Thousand Suns rules, so when you play someone that doesn't know them, you can correct them.
Yeah, T-Sun's still excellent.
But no, yeah. More serious note. Yeah, Blood
also,
Angels is-
You got to be able to
But,
kill
yeah.
Marines.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, Grey Knights are really good. I mean, they're not really Marine bodies, but, AP works against them. Moderate AP works against them. Moderate AP works great against Thousand Suns and, like, multiple damage as well. 2 and 3 damage. Thousand Suns, Grey Knights, Blood Angels. Lots of other Marine chapters that people think are good. CSM are still quite good. World Leaders are still out about a little bit. Death Guard are great. Like, you just need to be able to kill Marine bodies. It's like
Also,
kind of
if
what we
you
talked about at the
live
start of 9th
in the
edition. You got to be able to
Yep.
kill a Marine.
Slasher going to Tacoma, you got to be able to kill a Thunderwolf. And you got to be able to kill 24 of them pretty quickly.
Oh, God.
Yeah, have a rep into Wolf Jail if you're trying to do well at an open right now. I don't think that they're going to be winning a lot of big tournaments, but they're going to be out in force, so be ready for
Especially
it.
Tacoma,
All right.
where like all the Wolf Jail players
Totally.
live.
Yep. All right. Next question coming in from Derek asks, does Death Guard have a place outside of just being a hey melee army, stop that faction pick currently for teams? That's going to be directed at Lucas.
No.
Yep, that's the whole thing.
They
What did you
are-
think of
they
Liam?
are
I assume that's
ghetto
Liam
Space
VSL's
Marines
vibe
that
check.
are really good in the melee armies.
Awesome. Did any of y'all read Liam's I assume it's Liam VSL's vibe check Imperial Guard list? Maybe it's another Liam.
Let me
There's other
quickly run
Liams
through
in
it.
there. If you were wondering what Imperial Guard list to
Oh my
play,
fuck-
Liam knows
Stop
what he's
talking
doing,
when
so
I stop.
probably that one.
Yeah, I think his list is pretty cool, dude. Lucas, did you find it yet?
I forget which. Either Tyler or me is like colossally lagging because we keep starting to talk at the same time.
My entire computer is lagging like a motherfucker.
Nice.
I
It's
think
probably you
I
then.
think it's your fans. Quick, go dump water on his computer to cool it, dude.
It's Leontis, it's Ursula, it's 2 squads of guardsmen and chimeras, it's 2 basilisks, it's 18 Bulgrin, it's a squad of Casterkin, it's 3 Lehman Russ battle tanks, the basic one, and it's Nork Deadog. I mean, that seems pretty cool.
All right, my computer is being so messy, I'm not even going to paste the things in here anymore. I'm just going to ask questions and answer them. Josh asks, most competitive Tyranid and GSC detachments. The best Tyranid Detachments or data sheets? Detachments. Tyranids is tough because they all seem pretty good right now. With like the normal exceptions. I don't think Assimilation and Crusher have a place yet. But Vanguard is super cool and fun. Check out the stat rep with that. I think Invasion still absolutely fucks. Though the loss of the Echo CP is kind of a bummer. And then I think Nexus is probably going to be the default home right now as far as Tyranids are concerned. They do the Invasion thing, but a little bit better than Invasion can right now. Having AOC is really great. Having the reroll auras is really great. They take the best advantage of the best Tyranid data sheet, which is the Hive Tyrant, and it's not close anymore. It may be the Flying Hive Tyrant if you're playing Vanguard, but in every other detachment, definitely the Walking Hive Tyrant. It's just flat 10 free CP now. Woo! What the hell? This is a very stupid change.
Hits, dude.
And
whatever
and
will I do?
assault
Will
and
I pick
lethal.
lethal hits or a sustained hits? Oh wait, I already have one of them.
Yeah, it's very silly. All right, so that's and the most competitive GSC detachment. People seem to be having the most success so far with Rusted Claw without Rider. So probably that one, but I like Brood Brothers because I refuse to play GSC without Guard. I think they're necessary, but that's neither here nor there. Tim, the Weird Boy, asks, favorite and least favorite new mission combo on the list. You get one of them.
Does he mean like paired ones, probably?
Yeah, like give me a mission. We didn't talk about the special rules, but you can give me those you want, and a deployment zone. I'll go first because it's easy. The worst one is that supply drop, search and destroy is still in the pack. What are we doing?
Boo.
Hate it.
All right, I've got a cool one.
Yep, hit me.
You guys ready for this? Tipping
Is it
point.
gonna be take and hold Crucible? Oh, tipping point.
No.
Spicy.
The old classic. Tipping point. Hidden supplies. Terraform.
Damn. Brother wants to run 20 orcs onto every objective and score infinite points for it.
I can't run into the action, boy.
I want to play mission. Terraform Stalwarts Crucible Battle. That one looks fun.
I want every every mission rule to be stalwarts, and I want to play 6 brigands. Thoughts?
Stop. Nope.
Cease. Cease at once. Gone.
Remove the battle intact for brigands. All right. Anyways, the worst one
All
is
right,
probably search and destroy supply drop.
Yeah, it's bad. We don't have to go any deeper than that. Sam asks, are secret missions busted, and are they the new meta? We talked about secret missions plenty. We're not talking about it anymore. Chaos Rex, hot or grot? Absolutely hot. I talked about that earlier. I love him. He's excellent. Play him. I hate that he goes through walls now when he's not only when he's in Imperial Knights. Why does he go through walls as an ally? That rule is stupid. Very good detachment data sheet. Take it. And then Ryan Scher asks, should I play Death Guard, Sisters, or World Leaders at Tacoma? Depends, Ryan. Do you want to win? Play Sisters.
Ryan, do you want to have fun?
Ryan? How much shadowboxing would you like to do over the course of the event?
Oh, I love that shadowboxing has become a meme.
My vote's a good meme. Leaders, by the way. I'll give you my cards, Ryan. You can play them.
Sweet. Those are our opinions. If you want more, come hang out with us, Ryan. Play some more Hammer. That is all of our listener questions. Sweet. We're through in just over an hour and a half. That's kind of what we were shooting for here. Sweet. How did you guys... The answer is never sisters. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
We will be back, possibly a week from today, because this Monday slot seems convenient enough for all of us, ? More details to come. No, I will not be playing Spider-Mans. I will not. I refuse. You cannot make me. We'll be back soon. Because our schedule is a lot more open on weekday afternoons and evenings during the summertime, with Nick and I being a little bit less tied up, and weekends being more tied up with practice and tournaments and whatnot, we are hopefully going to be sliding into a regular weekday slot. Maybe it's Mondays. We'll see. But we'll be back next week because there's clearly a ton more to talk about. We'll probably do a deeper dive on the Pariah Nexus pack because we still won't have. We'll still be kind of under WTC lock until we can talk about a lot of cool stuff. We'll probably do. We'll have games eventually. Yeah, there'll be lots of cool stuff going on. So look forward to that. Anything else from you guys before we sign off for the week?
That's exciting.
Fantastic. Well,
Once EB heroic intervention was a terrible change. Thank you.
Horrific change. Utterly horrible. Why did we do this? Particularly in combination with the removing the battle tactic requirement. What are we doing?
And the charge blocking. We're now in edition. Don't charge people.
I don't know. I'm pretty happy my Ingress heroic, 10 Hearthguard play is now 2 CP, dude.
I'm happy that my Ingress heroic play with my Lictor is literally free. Thanks, Hive Tyrant and Lictor. Silly.
Lictor this, dude.
Lick these nuts. Anyway, with that all being said and done, thank you so much for joining us. Check out the stuff in the description and the rest of the shows. We'll see you next time. I've been Tyler.
I've been Nick.
I'm Lucas.
And we'll see y'all next time. Hope you had a good one. Take care, everyone. I'm out.
I love watching 5 frames per second, Tyler.